What chapter are we talking about?
We're
Altar of the world.
talking about chapter 6, spiritual practice of encountering other people in community. And if you have been reading this book, I think you can appreciate how straightforward and simple and direct she is in her writing. She really doesn't leave you any room to say, I wonder what she wants us to do. She'll tell you what she wants us to do and how we want to think. There was a quote at the very beginning, if you have read this, and it says, walk joyfully on the earth and respond to that of God in every human being, by George Fox. Now, I didn't know who George Fox was.
Quaker.
Huh?
Quaker.
He was a community organizer in the mid-17th century in England and the founder of Society of Friends. And what he believed and what he was wanting his followers to believe is that he allowed a person to know God's will for him or herself, not directly through other people, but it was an inward journey. All great religions recognize that the main impediment to living a life of meaning is self-absorption. Is what? Self-absorption. We need someone to help us forget ourselves. Encounter not someone you can use, change, fix, help, save, enroll, convince, or control. But we want to meet someone where they are without any preconceived notions of what we can do for them. We are such good doers and we think we recognize what needs to be done. She talked about religion requires or wants community. And the reason they want community is so there's someone to tell the stories to and have a commonality of purpose. But that was also the big pitfall, is that if we have commonality, it keeps us together, but it also keeps people out because we have formed our commonality. And I think that's a real powerful.
Right. How
statement.
easy it is to find people just like you. Of course, you want to stick together.
Right.
But
right.
easier to denigrate the other.
And at the same time, you push other people away as you find your commonality. This particular spiritual practice of human community, there's no equipment, no trainer, no special setting. We begin by focusing on a human being that might sneak by us unnoticed. As people, we resist this unless we have identified this commonality already. And Jesus, she referenced, spoke this directly to this in Matthew. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took me in. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you? And so she would say that that was Jesus' explanation for being human with community. What we have in common is not religion, but it is our own humanity. And at the very end of the chapter, the assignment was get over yourself, love God, and love your neighbor as yourself. I have 3 questions that we might discuss to respond to this. How do you respond to Taylor's notion of encountering other people as a necessary spiritual practice?
Why would that feel necessary to you?
To be involved with someone in spirituality.
With someone else.
Yeah, I think it's okay because they can intercede on your behalf and they know that God loves you and they know that, people go through trials and tribulations and the person, the intercessor, he cares for everyone and he loves everyone and he loves you because God is love.
Right. Yes, Nathan.
Well, I'm always seeking, I'm restless and, excuse me, I'm having a soda with. And it is a result, it's part of my nature. And so that leads to inquisitiveness and that can lead to trouble, but it also, drives me and meeting new people is the key to that. I've recently been doing that when I come to these church affairs that draw in other people. I'm sitting next to somebody I don't know. Well, they're now in my phone book and we're talking. And that's amazing. I ran into one of them in the Goodwill and she said, I saw you at the opera last night. Oh, the last time I saw her, she was here. And it's become, sort of a natural pattern. And it fits into the conversation, but I don't know how I spiritually get something out of that. I have fun with it.
And I think that's the spiritual part of it. It brings you joy to make those connections and have that interaction. And I think joy is a spiritual feeling.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I discuss that very strongly too, but I
I'm
don't
sorry.
necessarily, I'm sorry. I don't necessarily think about it in seeking a spiritual experience. It ends up being a spirit, but I don't
Yeah.
seek it out. I don't say, okay, I have to go out and have a spirit, this is my responsibility to have a spiritual experience today, or I'm seeking a spiritual experience today. I don't know that we necessarily do that. I mean, I think it ends up being spiritual experience.
And I think that's the key.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think you can seek a spiritual experience.
She said, she gave an illustration, she does this in a sermon illustration, where she talks about going to going to the grocery store, you're at the cash, if someone's charging you out, someone's sacking your groceries. We just see okay, I don't see these really so much as people, I see them as someone getting my job done and I'm paying people to do. But she talks about, what if you really realize this person's gonna go home, they're gonna be tired, they've got friends, they've got problems, they've got things they're looking forward to and hopes and, just the fact of striking up a conversation with someone like that, you never know where it's gonna lead. It may be something significant, and if nothing else, they say just that loose connections that we have with people throughout our day matters to our emotional and mental health, and I think spiritual health. So I like that idea. I remember she had an illustration once where she talked about some teenage boy sacking her groceries and putting her tomatoes at the bottom of the sack, and she goes, oh, Then she realizes, oh, he's got the acne on his face, he's got 100 problems, he's probably got some girlfriend just coming to terms with going through puberty. Give the kid a break. And I thought that was a great story, but I think it's true, it's just being in the moment, is what she's saying.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you all. I need some guidance. On our way over here, we walked by the Grand Food, and on the corner of Grand Food stands 3 people from Venezuela.
From where?
Venezuela, asking for help.
Wow.
Jane and I walked by, we're gonna walk back there.
Yeah.
So here's this opportunity. What do we do? I mean, so I throw this out for you. What do I say to them? Do I introduce myself? Do they have lunch with me?
Do they speak English?
They were speaking English. Yeah, this was not.
You know, I had an opportunity, I had an.
So I mean, so here's here's an example, these are all these people that we care about, and we have political feelings about. And it's here, I mean, it's not down in Texas and it's not in Chicago, it's now in Winneta. And so the question is this something the church should help with? Is there some sort of pathway for them? They obviously have enough intelligence to come to Winnetka. As I was saying to Jane, I said, well, first of all, they speak English and we're smart enough to come up here. Which to me indicates they have a certain degree of foresight, that maybe others might not have, so.
Chuck, I had a experience sort of like this the other day. I went to Walgreens and there was a homeless woman standing up there. And I ended up, I walked in and didn't give her anything, you know, and then I walked out and thought, I really ought to, I started talking to her and I ended up giving her some money, but I talked to her a little bit more. And it ended up that, in hearing more, she needed some resources. And so I was able to give her some resources of places where she would go to get help with the homelessness.
So where would I direct these people?
Well, we need to put with, you
With
led
that-
the meeting the other night. Can you give him some direction about what they talked about at that meeting?
No, not yet. We've not had the meeting, they postponed it to some other day. But what I was saying, that with those people, they all have places that they go to before they spread themselves out. They are on every intersection now. And it happened to me, I saw them at the gas station. And he didn't speak English, he was speaking Spanish. And I was not far from home. And I have a Spanish speaking people, neighbors. So I took them home, brought the Spanish speaking person in there, and then they explained to me where they were. And they were, why don't you see you're not far from me? YMCA, not far from me. So I ended up giving a whole bag full of sweaters and winter stuff. And the guy also gave him money. And we arranged for them to find a job. I had noticed there's a car wash place where they hire people, help car wash and they get paid for them. So I directed them there and they found something. But these are people still, they'll come back out and stand in the corner again. So you can give them the resources where it is. I don't know if they have it here in the Winnetka area where they can go to, or they probably have come from somewhere because they know it's an affluent neighborhood and you will get more.
So we certainly through rummage have the option for clothing, I mean, if that's what they needed. I mean, I am asking it.
I remember going once with, I took Luke to New York to watch Harry Potter, that play. And I was sitting here thinking, gosh, I'm spending an enormous amount of money here. So we got up Sunday morning, which was great. I mean, it was fantastic and one of the great experiences we had as father-son. But we get up early morning, we're staying in a neighborhood in Manhattan. And I see a homeless guy, he's got all these blankets on top of him. He's a fairly young guy, probably in his 30s or early 40s. And he's sleeping when I go by and I think, I wish I could help that guy. And we could only find a Dunkin' Donuts that was open. So we went to Dunkin' Donuts and I bought a gift card. I think I did it for $15, something like that. So when I get back, he was awake. And I said, hello, and we had a conversation. And I said, I know this, and could you use some help to get a meal? So I've got a gift card here, I'll give you. I've never seen a guy be so excited. He said, I can live on that whole gift card for every day this week. So I just get a little something, and that's all I need sometimes. It's something to get me over. He said, I can't believe you stopped here with your son. And, I didn't even ask you to stop. And he felt like it was such a rich gift.
Just the communication, just the engagement.
Well, just the fact that I look at it, and then
Acknowledge.
my son was saying, Luke said, hey, Dad, why did you decide that? He said, well, because, I just thought about how much we're spending on this trip. Here's some guy who just needs a meal. And I'd rather give them a gift card than cash.
Right.
So, you know, the Pope says, well, what is my part? They're gonna go spend it out, that's their life, but I am the one who has a chance to make a difference, is what Pope, our present Pope, the present Pope is.
Okay.
So I just know, I found that, and it was a good experience for me as a dad, I think, trying to teach my son something.
That can make a big difference. You remind me too, seeing homeless people are just looking for some help. Starting by looking them in the eyes is really nice, because I think a lot of people are used to being ignored. Just to acknowledge that they're here, we're here together on the same block,
Right.
that can bring a smile. If you have time, ask them what they need.
Yeah, cause they don't like religion jokes, cause I had told someone a religion joke, I was like, something, a parable from the Bible, I was like, the way Jesus was walking, I'm like, I'm not playing this role with you all. You know, as a prophet from God, who played many roles, and they come at you, and I said, no, I said, I have to have a roof over my head. And cause he went out of different personalities and greeted people, and I told them, I'm not playing that role. You know, I'm not gonna be something like that. You know, I have to make sure I have a roof over my head.
Right.
I'm doing productive things. I just can't be out there. You know, they don't like those religion jokes, you know, when they come from a
Right.
female. You know, a male can, because they're of the personality of Christ. They represent a male Christ-like.
But it makes it, it's not like you have to give to every person,
Yeah.
but it's just looking at them and saying something, whether it's, you know, something neutral that maybe not like a joke or something. I think it makes a difference for people.
Mhm.
I guess.
I think the whole idea of just looking even at that guy who cut you off on the road or just about killed you or whatever, I mean, just look, I shouldn't say.
Well, I didn't
guy,
say well,
could be a
that-
woman, but-
For sure.
Right. But looking at them and thinking about them as being one of God's creatures is really a beginning move, I think, to think about, you know, think about.
And what put them in that regal
Right.
spot in their lives.
But they're still a human being,
Mhm.
they're part of humanity, they're part of their brothers, our sisters. And
So what keeps us insulated from the rest of the world when commonality makes us have relationships within certain boundaries? So then how do we expand that and not isolate ourselves?
I think part of it is our thinking. Realize that a lot of it's fear, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if not the whole theme of the chapter is, but it's there, and a lot of our anecdotes end on that point of, it's easy to love your neighbor, to treat your neighbor as yourself, but how about, let's talk about people who aren't like us. And the Greek word is philoxenia, love of the other, strangers.
Mhm.
And why would you go out of your way to try to get to know, let alone love a stranger? Because God loves that person.
And because it brings you joy.
Mhm.
I mean, because of this chapter, Kai and I have been discussing it, but this week we went out into the world with new eyes and said hello to people and asked
Wow.
questions of people.
So you guys kind of took it as an experience
Yeah,
to go out and actually do it.
yeah, and I consider myself a friendly person, but to expend the extra energy doing that was just delightful. To see people smile and engage back was lovely.
You know, yesterday I was going to Costco or whatever, the day before, and it was really blowing wind. And everybody's swooshing on Willow Road, you know, they're going 40, 45 miles an hour. And there in the midst of the wind was a blanket on the road, right on the road, family. And there was a 3-year-old girl, you know, old enough to know what's going on. Freezing, just like this, her mother's whole, I couldn't look, you know, I couldn't look. It was like watching television news.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a different family, but Willow and Shermer, they had a sign saying, we're refugees.
Yeah, well, anyway, I mean, that's how I got, I said, what can I do? Nothing. I said to myself, well, when I come back from Costco, of course, they weren't there.
Right.
So I have an idea. I mean, this is it. Something has to be, something, we feel like we have to do something. And as we drive away. And maybe the government could have another 3 number that you call, and then the cop comes and helps that little 3-year-old and blah, 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 blah. But I'm sorry.
Good ideas.
So Chuck, we really been helping with your question, did we?
Well, he did, however, it would be, and I think this is what's bubbling up here, is there ought to be some way to coordinate these needs. And, that's the issue is, well, almost sounds to me like someone is coordinating their transportation out. Right, because it sounds to me like there's been enough of these examples that have risen up here to indicate that somehow these people are now being disseminated throughout the
Yes.
whole metropolitan
I've seen
area.
him in the Wilmette Jewel, across my sometimes to Lago, if there's a family.
Okay, so the question would then be, okay, well, if somebody's doing that, it would be helpful to know who that is. Maybe
Yeah.
that would be, well, who facilitated you coming here?
Right.
And give me their contact information and I'll see if I can't go to them to see how we can help it programmatically as opposed to
Right.
one at a time, because
That's the tragedy about this whole thing is that it's not that Texas was wrong to think, boy, we've got all these people, we can't handle all this, we need to spread this out, let's work this out and call up other cities that say they're really open to these immigrants and see how they can help us. It was a political stunt.
Yeah.
And it makes me so cynical. I'm like, why? These are human beings. They weren't being treated like human beings. But the problem is real. And Texas obviously has a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on the doorstep. I can see why they are fed up and don't know what to do.
well,
So,
I don't blame them for doing what they did.
yeah, but that they didn't coordinate and fall or just.
They didn't ask for help. It was a political stunt. Saying,
It was
here, you liberal, lakefront liberals in your sanctuary cities, your problem. Governor Abbott didn't ask for help. He didn't want to coordinate it out.
Yeah, it made me really.
So is our reluctance in response to that political stunt?
Excuse me?
Is our reluctance to get engaged a response to that political stunt?
That's Chuck's question. There are homeless shelters. There's places to give people a roof over their head.
I think
I
we
know,
have a
but
responsibility.
With our hesitance to
Yeah.
Mhm.
respond, is it because of being a political
Yeah.
stunt? We're
Yeah.
responding to the political stunt
Definitely.
rather than responding to the
It's
need.
more than a political,
Right, possibly.
I think it's more than a political stunt. though.
Yeah.
It's just.
It's a problem.
If you, take a little time than you want here.
No,
Currently, our death rate is equal to our reproduction rate in the United States. We need immigrants.
I agree.
And we probably need around 3 million a year. That's only 1% of the population. I mean, if you actually believe in capitalism and growth, then you need growth. And so we need these people. The problem is we're not processing them properly. Because the federal government has not seen it politically to supply enough money to hire the administrative hearing officers to hear the migrants immediately when they come across the border. So I think this is, but we can't solve that problem because that's way above our pay grade, but we can help these people find meaningful work, as was mentioned over here. Now, even though they don't have and have had their administrative hearing card that says you can work, but that's what we have to do. And we really, it's to our own best interest to help them, whether or not you like Governor Abbott's mechanism of alerting us to this problem. We need to help this problem because it's in our own best interest.
I think so too, but I'm just wondering if some people's response is they're overriding that natural instinct to help because we
Oh, I
see it
think
as a
yeah,
political
yeah,
stunt.
yeah, I-
And so it's backfiring because people are perceiving it that way. I mean, they're reacting it that way rather than reacting out of their need to want to help and see the need to help.
Yeah. That's unfortunate that people would react.
Well, I don't know, some of the communities, I don't know what Winnetka's done about, they've drawn rules where they won't let people drop people off here, there's a fine, for the driver and I forget whatever else, and I think the animosity created a back reaction politically among the towns. But I think in terms of individuals, I know and nonprofits, we're like, no, we want to serve these people.
Yeah, right.
We
I think
don't
so.
want, and it's become a political football rather than just remembering they're human beings. And my reading of Barbara Brown Taylor, she's trying to increase get us beyond our self-absorption that we were talking about. And not being so self-absorbed and getting out, that the basic drive of a human being is to want to get outside ourselves and connect. We're just made that way to transcend. It's a spiritual thing to be able to feel like there's something greater than I'm a part of. And another human being is a great place to start.
Love this one, she said in this one spot that there was we are called to love one another once, but 36 times to love the other person.
Or the Hebrew Bible.
The Hebrew
Yes.
Bible.
Loving the stranger is mentioned 36 times,
36
but
times.
only once is the golden rule.
But I love this other quote. We have just enough religion to make us hate one another, but not enough to make us love one another.
That's Rabbi, some Rabbi.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
The chief rabbi of Great Britain,
That's very true.
Jonathan Sachs.
Yeah. Well, by the way, does anyone want a book? Because we don't have copies, so I can get you one if anyone wants one, hasn't got a copy of this book, because it's free.
We don't have one.
And I think that goes back to fear.
Anyone, okay.
And you have just enough knowledge to be afraid because they're different, but not enough to understand.
And she writes apolitically. I was thinking community. Wow, what can we talk
How
about
much is the
community?
book, $10? How much is the
Give what you can. Yeah, I think
is the book?
Oh, it's 10, I got you.
these are personal stories, just one-on-one human relationships. And it's a way of how she's talking about the word community.
Well, and then do you remember when Cameron was here for the Saturday and we did the envisioning
Oh, yes.
activities? And her bottom line was, if we're going to survive, we have to look outside ourselves. That it'll be the end of churches if we stay within our boundaries and don't go outside.
Church, there's a lot the church can do,
Mhm.
other than religious things, right? Make this a community center of sorts to help people in any way possible.
There had been discussion at different meetings about having space in this church for emergency limited time. And if we were carried through on that, people you encountered and the people you encountered, it'd be a great resource. And I don't know how we kickstart that.
I thought there used to be times that we had people staying here,
Yeah, for the family problem.
family friends.
Family promise, a place for people to spend the night.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They would stay the whole week.
They would stay for a week. The problem is it's very labor intensive.
Of course.
Sure.
You have to have, and church didn't have the resources
To keep it
labor
moving.
wise to keep.
Or the labor and financial people.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. So if we are not properly prepared, we would introduce that and get in the middle and not be able to complete all that, and it won't be successful.
Sure.
So maybe realigning our priorities a little bit. We've got resources for other things.
What Bill just said, the cart before the horse is what I'm thinking. If we could get to the bottom of that little girl, that 3-year-old freezing in the wind, I think they were, now that I've learned about the political side and those people were dropped off because there was no car, there's no possible way you can park a car where they were. So now I see what really that was. Yeah, I couldn't look, but they were dropped off there, and by the time I went back, which was only 15 minutes, they were gone. So we have to get to the bottom of what Chuck is talking about and present something whereby maybe we could man the kitchen and give them a couple of nights here and so on. Not before we're educated, not before the real facts are known.
Yeah, I think I'll ask them who brought them there and see if we can't
There was
find
a
some sort of
meeting.
contact and work back through that to see if there's some way we can help that organization.
Well, see if they've been processed in Chicago
Yeah,
first,
right.
yeah. It should have been processed in Chicago and then what's the plan going forward?
So I'll ask them that and then see if, get some more information in and see if there's some way to help.
Thank you.
I remember Mr. Jeffrey talking about a meeting with the city or village, something about what the church could do. And from what I understand, they weren't straight, I mean, the church's mindset or the direction the church was going was kind of different from what they wanted to do. So maybe Jeffrey can shed some light on the process or where it is before we get involved individually.
And I want to say one thing about it, that you can make it, I mean, you guys have never physically abused anyone. I know since I've been going here, I've always been a picture of health. You guys are very affectionate. I don't have any scars or wounds. You never pushed me, you never did anything. And all they can maintain that while you take care of them, when they come here all bruised up, like you did something to them, you know, and that's a blessing. You know, my journey here, never had a problem here, never fell, never no one pushed me, put a bruise on me. So this is a very good congregation, a good church for one that wants to be loved in disguise. You know, so I, never pulled my hair out, everything very nice, very friendly, very affectionate.
Nice of you to say that.
It is, yes.
It's really nice. Chuck, I think that, well, for everybody, I think that Jeffrey is working with a coalition of other ministers and so on and so forth to try to figure out a way of addressing this. You might want to talk to Jeffrey about it.
Yeah, I'll do that as well.
Chuck, if you find that out, it would be wonderful if you could share that with us. Somebody.
We'll see what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, any of us could email Jeffrey and just, let's share it with this group, whatever Jeffrey has.
So is it
resources.
gonna be an individual thing or it's gonna be a church thing?
That's a.
Or it could be,
But
it could be
there
a
are
group
people
within
in
the
all
church,
kinds
it
of
doesn't have to go up
Exactly.
to the church council and get some.
We're individually free to do what we want, so a group of us could just, it won't be officially a church action, something to be voted on, but if there are other
But
organizations.
they're probably out there, it would be helpful, I think, spiritually, mentally, politically, for the church to address this
Exactly.
in some organized fashion. Because
Absolutely.
it really is it's an issue that arises from the failure of the federal government to really adequately address something that's in its own best
Yeah.
interest, and it's
Because
it's regrettable, lamentable that we can't fund the administrative hearing officers to process these people fast enough so that they can go out and legitimately do the work that we need them to do. This is completely nuts.
Many people in Congress would never vote to raise that budget.
But if we have decided that the government has failed, which I believe they have, then is it incumbent upon us and the church to fill the gap?
I think
You
it is.
know,
I think
it's
so.
interesting because I'm hearing it from a systemic level and I'm hearing it from a personal level. And as I'm thinking about it, we've lived frugally, we could easily go I loved, Alan's idea of a gift card. You could get a gift card at that level and put the same amount of money into a donation to Refugee One or, hit it at both levels, just as individuals, we could do that.
Sure,
That's right.
sure.
About a month ago, maybe more than that, there was an article in the paper, in the Chicago Tribune, about a woman. And I think this is a woman that John sang with in the Chicago choral artist when he sang. She lives at Oak Park. She has her own house. She lives by herself. She had cancer. She decided to take a family in, they were illegal. She brought them into her house, fed them, clothed them, gave them a place to live, and developed a very close relationship with them. And I was very moved her name is Elaine. I was very moved by the fact that Elaine was able to do that. And I thought to myself, why are we not able to do that?
We are.
And I thought maybe it's because I haven't talked to her about it. It'd be interesting to talk to her about it, but maybe it's because she had cancer. And maybe, she's facing the end of her life, and that's why she was able to make that decision. I don't know, but it's
But
really
underneath it,
interesting
she
to
had
think
to be
about.
a really kind, generous
Right.
person.
And
cancer.
why was she able to do that, But the story was about the joy that family gave her
Mhm.
as well.
Wow.
It was very powerful.
Is that building available? Will we have the rummage sale available? Is that where they can stay maybe? And, we have, that, building across the street?
Darkness.
Well, it's full of things to sell. There's
But
no
they-
room.
Yeah.
There's no work there.
And their
Kids in the
daycares and.
preschool.
We have to rent additional space to store material that we don't have space to store in
Yeah.
facilities. Yeah, there is,
I know.
unfortunately, there is a. Actually, the space is here. We have our educational wing, which is empty except for 1 hour a week. We have like 5,000 square feet of space. It's empty all week, so. But there are many other possibilities for that use. We need to get through May 1st and then we need to adopt our strategic plan and get through the senior minister vetting process, which should terminate in May, and then we can start working on some of these other issues that we have. So.
But there are individual things that we can do.
Well, absolutely.
that don't-
I mean, what
that
the
is
church could
really
do.
End up being no skin off our backs to small steps.
It's a good way to describe it. There are things we can do individually, and there are things that we can do systemically, and there are things that we can do as a church, and they're all probably different.
We take them shopping,
That's right.
spend $100, $200 on taking them shopping. What's $200?
Yeah, we go to Walmart and load them up.
Right?
The individual things can obviously maybe be memorable, be really emotionally, spiritually impactful to someone one day, and might give them a little more hope going forward, but I guess we don't, people like us obviously can't just do that one thing, the $15 Dunkin' Donuts card, and feel that we've changed the world. We might have given some family a little bit of hope, but I'm glad we're thinking systemically also. This book doesn't at all. But, just to plant this seed of loving a stranger, of course, there's a ton more we can do as a group, as a church, as a community, as a village.
Well, I think at least our experience today indicates that we're all going to have an opportunity. This is
Well,
this is not a theoretical discussion.
if we all took the opportunity, if everybody in the country took the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
There wouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
Absolutely wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, imagine
if
if we-
everybody were to do this, the problem would disappear.
If our elected officials actually thought about doing something. But
So you suggested for $100 or $200 for shopping. The church has a rummage.
Yeah.
And we have quality stuff in the rummage.
Right.
So I would think if we could make an arrangement, contribute that money to the church, and we open up that for that, we can collect items, donations, and make them come and help themselves to it. Or instead of spending the $200 in the show, you can go to a Salvation Army, you can get stuff.
Right, resale shop,
Exactly.
you can get a lot of stuff for
Exactly.
$200.
For clothing, for blankets and pillows, for
Yes.
furniture, whatever you need.
Because the individuals, they
Probably not for personal hygiene items, that's probably,
Right.
well, you'd have something to do, something.
You can sort through your closets, do a little spring cleaning.
Walgreens gift card.
So we probably have enough
might not
of ours, they probably go through our own larder and find all the toothbrushes our dentist has given us.
Exactly. Too many of those. Actually, Nancy had her hand up for a while. Nancy?
I just wanted to say that, it's very impressive what this group talks about. It's too bad the people out there haven't heard every word. But, because there is a problem of getting our soul out there. And so I was only thinking of the word pontificate and all these churches and stuff, but that's really not true of the Catholic churches all over the world giving. But on the other hand, when somebody speaks clearly to the problem, rather than giving us a beatitude, like pronunciation, the world will, the people around here will listen. And this church will benefit. And I'm only thinking about what happened in was it at the 20s when we had all the labor disturbance in the city and everybody was coming out here and talking about all the problems. And there was even a building in the woods over here on the beach and everybody came and talked. I think we're at a junction, in this world about how we handle the next step. And to hear, I don't wanna make you blush, Chuck, but to hear you talk and put it in a basket is really educational.
Well, it's an opportunity that will face me as I leave here. Sure. If we're still there. Well, I'm sure there'll be somebody else if they're not there. I can probably walk up and create my own opportunity. It sounds to me like this could be organized, is being organized somewhere, and probably actually is seems to me maybe effective if other groups are having these discussions. I think that's a good thing. I think that is.
Tell us what we can do once you talk.
Yeah.
Because we can all come together,
I'll let.
maybe work, maybe
Isn't this a great
develop a plan
opportunity?
to help, whatever we can do.
Out of the visioning, because the visioning is a lot about looking at our history, right? I mean, just economically speaking, today is worse than what was called the Gilded Age. The economic,
Disparity?
is much worse.
Okay.
Is it really? I mean, have you seen statistics? I
Yes.
mean, I had the feeling it was as equal, but I've never heard anyone say it was worse. That's really bad.
Well, it is compounded by other things, because back then, yes, there were some robber barons that owned, almost all the wealth. And there were no unions. Well, the unions are almost gone now, again, since the middle third of the 20th century, where things were thriving and wealth was evenly distributed relatively. But compared to 120, 130 years ago, today, the refugees, the political crisis, it's easy for world problems to they don't see borders. It's, we're all in this together. So things that were happening on the other side of the world back then were someone else's problem, right? The United States was easy to be an isolationist country back then. Now I hope it's impossible to feel we're isolationists because the world's problems are our problems.
One of the things that I think we also need to think about is that what I have read is that the United States, even though we have our struggles, we also are one of the most generous places in the world. In terms of the individual people giving money to help other people in crisis.
So it's charitable giving, yes.
We are off the top in terms of giving. And that's something to celebrate, I think.
It should inspire people and remind us that a lot of it comes from, compared to a lot of other countries, we don't want institutionally to take care of it. The government's not gonna handle these, safety net issues, social welfare. We'll just leave it to, Jeff Bezos to handle. But even the greatest philanthropists can only try to put their fingers in so many holes
Right.
because the flood is bigger than.
But I'm talking about people who don't have money. They give money.
That's true.
They give money generously, even though they are limited, they give money generously to, hurricane victims, all these different things that happen. It's really,
And I think that's true, and it is amazing. On the other hand, it's a way to keep their hands clean.
that's true.
I will
Send
send
the
money
money.
to this,
Mhm.
but I'm not gonna take anybody in. I'm not going to feed anyone. I'm not going to shelter anyone personally. And I think that goes back to what you said about, what was it, that as a community, you take care of your community.
The commonality brings you together, but it
Yeah,
also
commonality
separates you
brings-
from
Right,
the rest of the world.
yeah, and I, that's kind of speaks to that for me.
Sure, harder to reach out and actually personally help someone who you have zero in common with.
Yeah.
Someone who's a total stranger, someone
And
who's not
it's the fear,
Christian, someone who doesn't live anywhere near Winnetka.
the fear that is under that, I think stops us.
And when we talk about need, that also becomes intellectual and systemic change. But when you talk about interacting with a person,
Mhm.
meeting somebody on the street corner and wanting to do something that's positive, just not knowing exactly how to connect to that. But I think it's hard to, I think what she was talking about, and maybe that's what Barbara always talks about, is right now, just me and you, and maybe it has to start there. And
Right, if individuals are living empathetically or caring about the community, then of course we can expect that people like that will organize and get bigger things done.
And that's because once you start that interaction, it lessens the fear, so you can go out further and further and further because you have the courage. Because it started small and,
the group gives you confidence.
Yeah.
To go out in a bigger way, because it is so beneficial to both sides of the equation.
some of you may not know, but several years ago, when Alan was here before, he decided that rather than us just giving money, we should do a very personal and on-hand engagement. And so I ended up being asked to do that reluctantly, very, very, very. And, I got involved and, we adopted, there was a group of us, we adopted a family from the west side of Chicago. Brought them to Evanston, and we had a very generous donor here who gave us some money and we were able to provide housing for the first year. And clothing and all kinds of things from Rummage, and people donated things. It was really wonderful. And through the years, I think they thought that that was going to be just a 1 or 2 year project, but I could see that it wasn't gonna be 1 or 2 year. You develop a relationship, and it's not, you can't just walk away from that relationship. Well, anyway, I ended up being the last man standing. And I saw them, I've been involved with them for 20 years. 20 years, and it's a fabulous experience. There have been many times, many of you know, who've walked with me through this. There were times when I wanted to tear my hair out. There were times where I was ready to quit. I've had it. My husband, my son would say, come on, Mom, we need to continue this. They kept prompting me and I continued, and I have a fabulous relationship with them. We have 2 kids. One kid got a scholarship off to college this year. The second one got a full ride, quit during COVID, but I think I'm gonna be able to get her back. I just spent last week taking her shopping for her first apartment, $250 worth, giving her stuff from my apartment, getting her set up. But her mother is gone. Her mother's not living in the area now. And so who else is gonna do it? Mother Carol. But it's still, I mean, very rewarding to me because of, I mean, just all of the relationships. And I had this fabulous experience, an email at Christmas time from the 19-year-old in college who said, Carol, I don't know, this is a 19-year-old boy saying, Carol, I don't know what we would do without you. You are so important to us. I love you.
Oh.
It's work.
So, and I say, I got involved with God putting a hook around my neck. And it was tough, it was really tough, but it was very rewarding. So, it can be done. It takes a lot of effort and patience and